Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all. So we're doing another NATO video.
Yes, this one's with TLDR. We're going to review the video. The short one, but it's compact, and I think it's got a lot of really great information. So let this young man cook and put in our bits on the way. Here we go.
So before we get into the question of whether or not NATO is dead/dying, let's start by explaining why Trump and co are so upset. Broadly speaking, they seem to have two issues with NATO at the moment. The first is the decision by a number of European countries to limit America's use of bases and airspace. Spain, for instance, closed its airspace to US planes involved in the Iran war. Italy denied landing rights to several US bombers at the Sigonella base in eastern Sicily, and France prevented Israel from using its airspace to transport American weapons to be used in the war. These European states generally argue that they're imposing these restrictions to stay on the right side of international law.
So there is an industrial complex, military-industrial complex, need, want, and desire to have access to all those places to get all of their equipment deployable, right?
Yes.
But Europe also has a military-industrial complex that's also interested in getting their things put out there as well, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a mainline thing, but it's my thought that when you restrict airspace like that, because we have been doing joint operations with NATO for years and years and years, part of the issue is that, well, we've been using this space for a very long time, right?
Yes.
But then the EU says, I believe that there's a thing you're doing that is morally bankrupt, right? That's the position. So you are not going to use our airspace to perpetrate a thing that we find ethically just unsound in all ways, right?
I think the Spanish have spoken out. I think it's down to something deeper that's happening within Europe as well. Is in the last months, it's just the way Europe has been treated by the United States.
Right, not great at all.
So a lot of politicians, including I'm talking about the German politicians, the ADF and so on, a lot of far right parties,
AFD,
are jumping on the bandwagon of anti-Trump for the most part.
Right. Well, then so if you look at section,
this is a way of sticking it to US without sticking it to US, if you know what I mean.
If you look at Section 5 in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's treaty, it says that we will come to the assistance should it be a defensive war, more designed as a protection against Russia going west into Europe, right?
So but that's what NATO is designed as, is a defensive organization.
But if you cite existential threat and then you attack, that isn't a defensive function. And for NATO to say that's not a defensive function, we don't feel it's our responsibility, right? Now, there's a lot of conflict here, not for lots and lots of citizens of lots and lots of countries, right? So in January, Iran killed 30 to 40,000 of its citizens. Since 1979, women have become functionally chattel slaves in most places in Iran. The IRGC is not a good government for its people, right? So that is a different kind of existential problem, right? But there are lots of countries in the world that are morally bankrupt, ethically unsound, just horrific places to be, right?
Yeah.
There is a big dinosaur juice problem going on, I'm thinking, right? You are a horrific government, but you are controlling a resource and you're controlling space for movement through the Strait of Hormuz, to get to the Gulf of Oman from the Persian Gulf, right? So you're restricting trade, you're restricting access, and on top of that, you're making deals with other countries, not using the petrodollar, you're using yuan, and you're using other kinds of currency, and that destabilizes the United States economy in a bad way, right?
Yes, but not being smart, but this has been going on with Iran for decades. Everyone knows this.
Right, since 1979 when the regime took over, yeah, for sure. And the regime is fighting for its existence against the will of its people, right? Their dollar, or the real, or whatever, I think it's the real, is worthless. That's worthless. So the people are about to start starving, right? And you said before, they're going to go down, right? But they haven't, right?
As I have said before, eventually most of these governments usually collapse within themselves. Now, I think the problem is this war in particular has, from the outset, looks like a reactive operation. Go in, bomb the living dayers out of them, and then hope that the people will rise up and change the government. Obviously, this is not happening on the time scale that the US wants. So now they're having to commit more and more resources without their traditional allies.
Right. And since the United States is so casualty averse, doing something like taking Kharge Island is going to be a huge issue anyway. And you're going to have to get them through the Strait of Hormuz, right? That links the Gulf of Oman with the Persian Gulf, which means there are 350 to 400,000 very angry IRGC soldiers and other military affiliates who are also armed. Right. The city of Bashir, right off the coast of Kharge Island, about 60 kilometers away, is 1.5, 1.6 million people.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to have to control serious spaces of the coastline to ensure you can get your naval vessels through, to ensure they can't lay mines and lots of other kind of inconveniences, drones. And then you're also within range of all their short and medium range missiles once you get into that space. So if you're a casualty averse country that doesn't want to commit 200,000 or 300,000 personnel plus logistics, armor, and all the other kinds of go boom technology you need to put in there to hold that, how are you going to get to Kharge Island and then hold it? Right? The Marine Corps, and with their amphibious landing and all the things they're trained to do, are very, very good at it. United States Airborne troops are very, very good at it. But once they take it and sit on it, it's going to be like sitting on a plate in the middle of a bathtub. Everybody can see you on the plate. Right? If you took a bunch of little army men, put it on a plate in the middle of your bathtub, like, we can see you on the plate. And then they just bomb the living dog mess out of it. Right?
That is but you have to remember, we were looking at a documentary recently, but taking Kharge, you have to also take the coastline of Iran and first. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of troops committed from the US on their own.
If they were to do that. But the other thing is that Iran can just blow it up. It would take away 90% of their ability to push oil out to the world. But the regime isn't looking to beat the United States. They're looking to stay in power. Whatever the IRGC, whatever the theocracy there is there with Khamenei and whoever is his successor, that they want to keep the power,
Yes, and would they blow, if the US sees that island, would they blow it up? No, but they will make it very costly for the United States. They just have to sit offshore and just, as you say, just pick them off. It's a flat. What people don't understand is pretty much a flat plate, as you were saying.
Well, there's a little hill on the bottom of it that's about 70 meters tall. A
little hill, but that's not going to stop suicide drones and so on.
Right.
It's going to be an absolute nightmare of an operation that is not going to be solved anytime soon. I know the US president there recently said it should be solved in 2 to 3 weeks. That's very not realistic. That's being honest. Without a major peace commitment.
Right. Well, they're looking for a spark to get the people to rise up against the government, but they still have the 350 to 400,000 troops, plus they have the secret police and all those other kinds of apparatus.
The infrastructure is still in place.
Yeah, the apparatchik's still in place. So
yeah. And plus, I know there's other countries now around, like Pakistan and so on, are trying to broker some kind of a peace deal.
Right. Well, and then
that's going to be.
I don't know. They're trying to mess with India right now. They're having some issues, but now the Gulf states, some of them are really pissed off that missiles keep coming over. So now they're pushing, hey, US, you better, you stuck it in. You better keep going. Right.
Yeah, well,
like now we don't really want a peace deal. We want them to not be a part of it. And a lot of it has to do with their energy production is going to be affected. Yeah. So once you grab somebody by the wallet, they pay attention. There's 2 places you can grab somebody by. One of them is the wallet, and they really pay attention to that one. Right. That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the saddest part about all this is there's no military planning behind any of this. And it's so blatantly obvious to anyone who's watching the news recently saying there was zero thinking behind this operation. I think it was.
Right, hold on. What you're saying is you have information that you can't have, though. Right? It looks really bad.
All you have to do is open your eyes and watch the news and watch them stumble.
Right. But while I understand you're saying that, right? Some kind of planning had to go into it. The operations had to have been improved. I get that, right?
They had a great plan, as I said, to go in, bomb the living there, or everything.
Right, but no plan survives first contact. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, right? So it might have looked real good on paper, but then now, as opposed to strategy, you're in the middle of tactics, like consistent tactics, because now you're just reactionary, right?
And it's not working. It's obviously it's not working. The whole world can see it's not working.
Well, that means we would have to understand the goals of the current administration. Maybe we don't know exactly what the goal is, regardless of what is being said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's
all
true.
Right. Let's let this fella cook.
But the US has accused them of essentially failing to show sufficient solidarity with a fellow ally. Second, Trump and co are apparently annoyed that European NATO members aren't helping to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. For context, the Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman that connects the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Aden, and thus the rest of the world. In normal terms, it's a vital artery for the global economy, with something like 20% of the world's oil and gas flowing from oil producers in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the UAE to oil importers in Asia and Europe. But traffic through the strait collapsed at the beginning of the war after Iran launched a series of missile and drone strikes against transiting ships.
Right, and understand that Strait of Hormuz is approximately at its narrowest point about 50 kilometers across.
Yep.
Right. So it's not a difficult space to control if you control the coastline, right? Either one of them, really. So either one of them could block it out, either Oman or Iran.
Yep. But in fairness to Oman, they have said straight out they're not in the middle of this conflict. They're trying to stay out of it.
Right.
Even though the infrastructure has been attacked indirectly. But the sad thing is, it's 20% of the oil industry.
Yes.
As it was pointed out there, is going through there. We have all gone to the local petrol pump in the last week or two and seen the prices just skyrocket across the board.
Right. Well, but understand also,
by the way, which is having a massive knock-on effect to the global economy.
Right. Well,
everyone around the world.
Right, because it costs that fuel to move the products, and the products will be more expensive on the other end.
Yes,
is an easy logistics thing to look at it, right?
Yeah.
But understand that it's also 20% of the fuel that goes, or the oil that goes to market, because other countries, Scandinavian countries, United States, Canada, pumps and stockpiles, right? Their stuff isn't going up on the market. So that 20% is 20% of the oil that is going to market, which is an important distinction, I believe.
Which is really affecting the European economy at the moment. It's in all European countries, including my own.
How much is it a liter? How much is petrol per liter there?
Well, diesel is gone well over the €2 mark. Petrol is not too far behind. And it's starting to going up every time I seem to go down and fill up. But it's not just that. Heating oil has also gone up. It's we're looking at the price of goods now going up inside the shops, because obviously transport companies will have to pass on that cost.
So in Southern California, it's in many places up over $7 a gallon, right?
Yep.
And in the center of the state, it's at about $6 a gallon. So it's gone up, I don't know, over just under $2. And then as it goes up to $6.09, $6.19, then it's starting to get $2 up from where it was, right? I filled up a vehicle yesterday, $88 American, American dollars to fill it up, right? Yep. And that was when I had put 50 in the night before and only driven about, I don't know, 30, 40 kilometers. So
that's what I'm trying to say. It's everyone is feeling this conflict at the moment.
For sure.
Everybody around the world.
Get back to it.
And announced that passage would now require Iranian permission. For their part, Trump and other senior US officials made essentially 3 arguments in pushing European NATO members to get involved. First, they argued that European NATO members were obliged to help out a fellow NATO ally.
Obliged in a defensive capacity only per the 5th article of that treaty.
Yes. By the way,
Second,
Article 5 has only ever been triggered once in the history of NATO. And that was in 9/11. That's the only time Article 5 was ever put into effect. when America was attacked in 9/11. Just bear that in mind.
They argued that they owed it to the US for their support in Ukraine. And third, they argued that it was in Europe's self-interest anyway, because Europe relies more on oil supplies exported via the Strait of Hormuz. European NATO members apparently weren't convinced by any of these arguments. On the first argument, there's nothing in any NATO treaty obliging European states to come to America's aid here. NATO
Right. Again, it's an attack, not a defense.
NATO's famous Article 5 only applies when an alliance member has been attacked, not when they attack another country, as America has in Iran. On the second argument, that Europe essentially owes America for its help in Ukraine, this is a difficult argument for Trump to make, given that his administration has withdrawn basically all military aid to Ukraine, and spent most of the past 12 months playing diplomatic footsie with the Kremlin. Furthermore, you could argue that the main reason the Biden administration supported Ukraine wasn't because they felt obligated to help Europe, but rather because, seeing Russia as a strategic adversary, they deemed supporting Ukraine in America's strategic interests, in much the same way that Europe currently thinks that it's in their strategic interest to stay out of the war in Iran, and Trump thought it was in America's strategic interest to stop supporting Ukraine. This would explain why.
Well, there's a lot going on with that too, right? So Zelensky and company have stopped having elections until the conclusion of the conflict.
Yeah, but most countries, by the way, just bear this in mind, including my own country, have that in times of war, most elections are cancelled. That's in most people's constitution.
For consistency, right?
Yes.
But I think that's part of the reason they were pissy. Not only that, there's some corruption there. I don't know if you've heard, a little bit corrupt there.
And plus you also have to remember that Putin and Trump have a very close working relationship. Like, none of us in Europe are denying that the US wants to pull out of conflicts around the world that doesn't really evolve them. That was Trump's promise when it came to Ukraine. And we understood that the minute he got in there that he was going to pull all support and make up whatever else behind it. We all understood this. What I think Europe's biggest problem is it's the mixed messages you get from the US in the last couple of weeks and months. There's no clear message, there's no clear goal
of
what we want, because it seems to change from day to day.
There's a consistency issue with it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And by the way, I understand that a lot of the pundits around the United States saying there's massive corruption in the Ukraine. But there's massive corruption in every country, by the way. Just bear that in mind.
100%.
It is in European strategic interest for the Ukrainians to win against Russia. For our long-term security, it's in our interest for them to win that conflict. And also, it could be argued the fact it's in America's best interest as well, as Biden pointed out, for them to win that conflict as well. It weakens Russia on the world stage as well, which in the long-term strategic interest is good for the United States.
Right.
So all they have to do is worry about is China more than Russia and China.
Right, but you can't punch down on the bear forever and have the bear not raise up, right? Like that's...
Yes, but if you pull them into a long-term bloody conflict, which the Ukraine is, it's costing them hundreds of thousands of lives.
Yeah, that's
leads
horrible.
Russia dry for a long time. That's common sense. And plus, all it would have cost the United States was weapons and money, with very little risk to American lives.
And for a casualty-averse country, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, common sense. That's why Biden supported that. When I know Trump wanted to make peace over there and so on. So that's what the US is not.
Right, but again, there's still an issue with Crimea and the Donbass and the UN lines as they're drawn, and Russia is still occupying Ukrainian land at the end of the day. Right, so there's still a violation in place either way. So, all right, let's get back to this kid.
And this is often forgotten today, the Biden administration wasn't actually a massive supporter of Ukraine to begin with, but dramatically escalated their support in mid-March 2022 once it became clear that Ukraine was able to resist Russia and thus potentially deliver a strategic blow to the Kremlin. On the third argument, while it's true that basically none of the oil that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz goes to the US, and that at least some of it goes to Europe, although it's worth noting that the vast majority goes to Asia, this doesn't really mean that Europe needs the Strait to reopen any more than the US does. While the closure of the Strait might thus have a more immediate impact on Europe, the aggregate effect is higher global oil prices, which affect the US as much as they affect Europe. Nor is the fact that the US is currently a massive oil producer really relevant here either, as Trump seems to
That's California.
think it is. Sure,
Yep.
higher prices means more profits for American oil and gas producers, but they're bad news for the rest of the US economy, which dwarfs the shale industry, and for American consumers. But perhaps most significantly, European countries don't believe that getting involved will actually help to open up the strait. Properly reopening the strait will require either Iran's total surrender or some sort of deal with Iran. Europe
For a massive, massive military engagement. Massive.
Yes. But I don't see
NATO
the I don't see the NATO allies getting involved ever again in a
No.
US operation. Not after what was said about their veterans who died for
Not in
it-
Iran
it-
for sure.
No, especially I think there's so much bad blood between Europe now and US over the last couple of months that it'd be very hard for the US to cobble together an allied force at the moment.
Right. Here we go.
members apparently don't believe that Iran's surrender is forthcoming, and that getting involved in the war will probably make it harder to do a deal while incurring escalatory risks. This is why European NATO members have been unwilling to get involved in the war more generally. Even the more pro-America members just don't want to get involved in a war without a clear exit plan or strategic objectives. So with that in mind, is this the end of NATO? Well, technically, no.
Part of the deal is that there isn't a clear goal set, right? So now it's we're going to beat you up and beat you up and beat you up till you capitulate, right? But to set out a big war plan is going to require a lot of kinds of approval from, say, Congress for a war, right?
Yeah.
Trump functionally has free reign for about 90 days, at which point I believe the Dems are going to press for either an attempt to declare war, or they're going to be told to just pull the hell out. Like, you need to stop doing the thing, right? Because I don't know what you think this looks like, but to the rest of the world, it looks like a war. Looks like a war.
Yes. To be honest, the rest of the world would call it a war. It's.
Right.
I think what the problem is, so many bridges have been burned everywhere that no one knows how they're going to put this genie back in the bottle.
Right.
No one knows. There's no, as I said, there was no clear plan going into this.
Right. The government of Iran is a very, very bad government for its people, for any peoples. If that group of people were in charge anywhere, they would be bad. Right.
Yeah. But that could be said about a lot of world governments around the world.
There's a lot of moral failing in governments, for sure.
Yes.
Look at the African continent, just to see a couple of them.
Just get a map of Africa and just throw a dart at it, and you will find a government equally, if not worse, than what was in Iran.
Right.
But as you said, it all comes down to the dinosaur juice.
Yeah, it's not even.
And I know he was on about nuclear weapons as well, their ability to have a nuclear weapon. But recently, one of his former advisors was in front of your Congress, and he even told Trump that they're at least 10 plus years away from a nuclear weapon. Obviously, he lost his job since, but
here's the problem with an existential threat like that. When a country says, I will kill Israel and I will kill the United States if given the opportunity, right? If they get a nuclear weapon, they will use it on what they refer to as the little Satan, which is Israel, and the big Satan, which is the United States. They will do it.
But bear in mind, 6 months ago, Trump and Israel said they removed that from the table from the last attack on Iran.
No, while I understand that, but that sentiment is still there. Their declaration is death to the West.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of countries like that too around the world that are not big fans of the West in general.
Nah, they're not.
No, but what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, there's no strategic thinking when it came to this conflict.
Again, that's the thing we can't know. Right? It looks like things are bad.
They're sending just over 8,000 men to that region at the moment.
It's going to have to be more with the naval support. But no, I understand what you're saying. There must be something we're not seeing, or it's just badly planned. And it could be badly planned. But there also might be things that we don't know. We don't have any operational oversight. So
that's true. There could be it could be a plan to maybe bring Iran to the table eventually. that if we keep bombing them enough, that they eventually will come to the table and they can hammer out some sort of a deal. But bear in mind, Iran, all through history, has been called the graveyard of empires. The reason is it's literally surrounded by mountains. Big country that's surrounded by mountains in most sides.
Pretty ugly to try and get in
even
there.
trying to do a naval landing, by the way, is not that easy either.
Well, no, because the short-range missiles and all that stuff. Yeah, Bashir, right?
Yep. It's most of the Iran coast is shallow. So yes, you can get small vessels in onto the coast, but large supply vessels and so on and warships, it's not that easy.
Right, and most of the oil comes out of Kharge because almost everywhere else is shallow. Yeah, it's shallow. You can't get the big tankers in there because once you put the juice in them, they dunk down they go.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's a nightmare of a country to take and hold. By the way, taking it and holding are two completely different operations.
All right, here we go.
It
sucks. It's rough. Yeah, for sure.
Under the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, which, by the way, was spearheaded by Marco Rubio, the president cannot unilaterally withdraw from the alliance without either a 2/3 Senate vote or separate legislation. But even if legally speaking, it's hanging in there, practically speaking, NATO feels pretty much dead at the moment. The US clearly doesn't think that its nominal allies in Europe are doing enough to help it out in Iran, and it's hard to imagine the current US administration responding to an Article 5 request by another NATO member in the way that European states would consider adequate.
So if something were to happen along the old east-west line, if Russia were to come west, besides the Ukraine, which is kind of used to be our territory, not our territory anymore, right? The UN says the lines are here, but they're still occupied.
Invade the old Soviet nations like Lithuania and so on, yeah?
Bulgaria, Romania, all that stuff. I'm pretty sure the United States would pitch in. And I understand he says he doesn't think they will, but I'm pretty sure they would.
The sad thing is, it's hard to convince other NATO members that they would.
Right, because they feel like the United States has acted in bad faith.
Not too long ago, and I think we can all remember the headlines of him threatening to invade another NATO country's territory and threatening death and destruction on Denmark and so on, which is not too long ago, by the way, in the headlines.
No, not really.
Yeah, so
that would definitely exacerbate it.
That's still fresh in a lot of people's minds over in this part of the ocean, as they would say.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, it's not going to be good. It's not good.
Moreover, while Trump can't legally withdraw from the alliance, he could instead just withdraw all US troops and weaponry from NATO structures, which doesn't feel too unlikely an outcome in the current climate, and would render NATO redundant. Now, there are a lot of big players involved in this story, and it's no secret that the world we live in is run by big players like these, but not just in the world of politics. Big companies also have a complete monopoly over the world we live in, and avoiding them is kind of out of our control, as they seep into every part of our day-to-day life. But what if we told you that you could get some of that control back, starting with your email? I know you're thinking, my email? How much will that actually help? Well, your email is personal to you, and it's important to keep hold of what's yours. Most messaging apps make sure to let you know that your messages are end-to-end encrypted. So why do emails deserve any less? Well, thankfully, Proton Mail offers a solution to this.
That's amazing.
A private, secure alternative to big companies like Gmail.
They didn't sponsor us, but that's the email that we use. Like in the office, like inter-office emails. Yeah. So when we send anything to our producer or whatever back and forth, we use Proton Mail.
The person is born with privacy, but now that privacy is essentially non-existent because of our digital world.
London has, was it London that has the most cameras of any city that isn't in China, I suppose?
Having a choice. Email inboxes weren't created to protect children. They were designed to collect data. And
well, of course they were. That's why you get weird ads. Or when you talk about something near your phone, it just, the next day you get a bunch of ads for the thing you talked about. Even if you were talking about buying it, you're like, casually mentioning going to a movie, all of a sudden you're just inundated with, go to the theater, go see a film. Yeah.
Their account can easily be
Pretty
researched today, and
crazy.
it can be secured and protected for up to 15 years.
Yeah, I kind of
This will
messed
give
with
your child
a friend's laptop
secure
like that
digital
one time.
start from day one.
Not
as when
nice.
they're ready,
Not
the
nice.
inbox is waiting.
Yeah.
Private,
So yeah,
clean,
Proton Mail's
and
pretty damn
fully
good.
theirs.
It is
So if you want
actually
to take back your
really
privacy
good app.
or protect the future privacy of your family, start using Proton Mail for free using our link at proton.me/bp/TLDR, and you'll be one step closer to a fully protected online experience, free from data exploitation.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got the ad in
Yeah.
at the end there. I'm going to give him props. We're going to leave that in. We're going to leave that in because that was a pretty smooth transition. And we also use Proton Mail. So
yeah,
Proton, yeah.
Yeah, Proton Mail is actually really, really good. But to get back to the initial topic there, we did a video there recently with an American professor.
Sarah Payne.
Should be up. Yeah, and it's up already on our channel. Where NATO will always be there, even without the United States, because, you know, the infrastructure.
Because a group of folks with the same self-interest. So,
yeah. So it'll just expand out.
It's up on YouTube. It's not yet up on Rumble, though.
Yes, but we're in the process of uploading videos and so on to.
They're all all the Rumble videos are uploaded. It's just going to be over time. We had some technical difficulty with it. It happens, but anyway, go ahead.
But as I was saying about this particular topic is, I know that some home truths are hard for especially Europeans as well as Americans to hear. That we have to take the good with the bad when we do cover these topics. We have to kind of be realistic. We can't all kind of be like other pundits where no matter what a certain person does, it's always right. Have to kind of be objective when you do this kind of type of show as well. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. Yeah. There are 2, 3, 4, 7, 37 sides to a thing. And you need to weigh things. Again, that's why we use Ground News and Epic Times and all those kinds of things to try and balance out the stories, because news agencies are functioning on some serious bias. Because the old archaic versions of it, the legacy media, are paid for by advertising, and that advertising is controlled by someone, and they're gonna push their thing, right? The issue with social media things, when you have individuals who are subscribing to you, sometimes those channels also get captured by whatever niche they've fallen into, right? Yeah. So I get more views if I support this thing versus that thing. Right, which then colors them biased as well.
I've seen it so many times. I'm just talking about a couple. I'm not going to call them out. But certain right-wing YouTubers who cover a lot of this is, no matter how bad a policy is or how ridiculous it is, they seem to be all for it, which is a bit disingenuous as well. You have to, no matter how much you agree with a person, you also have to disagree with them sometimes as well. That's how you become balanced. That's how you stop being like the legacy media and so on. You have to look at things objectively, which is very, very important as well.
Right. When you put the blinders on, you're just not going to do well. And your position is going to get called out for being weak, right? You're like, hey, you're missing. I'm not missing. And then there's a bunch of people who support you who are giving you money. Here's some money. And I need you to say things that's going to be in my echo chamber, right?
Yeah, because it was funny there recently. Well, not recently, a couple of months back, when, you know, it was found that a certain media agency in the United States indirectly were being sponsored by Russia, who are sponsoring a couple of other people. And it was funny
I saw that.
Yes. And it was funny that the same guys, the minute that was released, by the way, like I think it was a Republican senator called it out. Well, anyway, somebody called it out anyway. But the minute that was released, a lot of the right-wing pundits were suddenly called out as well.
Right, because they didn't check to see where their assets were coming from. Right? If you don't know, you got to check that, right?
Yes. You have to see where your sponsorships are coming from, where the check is being cashed from.
Right.
And
for sure.
It was funny because a certain left-wing guy kind of caught them all out when he lined them all up. And every single one of them were saying the same message at the same time.
Yeah.
That was paid for by the way.
Oh, for sure. So we really try to avoid that. Because I disagree with Patrick. He disagrees with me. I think that gives us a better basis because he'll call me out. If I'm wrong, he'll be like, that's either morally or ethically bankrupt or your position doesn't hold. And I've told him things. Hey, I
Yes.
get that the potato famine happened, but you can't keep hating the folks. Get it?
Yes,
I get it. So,
but it is important to have a different discussion. And I have seen some of the reactions on some of our videos where they don't like the fact, well, especially the US part of our audience don't like the fact that I'm European, maybe not put on the MAGA hat and just
well,
all this. But
I get accused
you
of
have to
being a
remember,
filthy Euro, and they say wild things. I'm like, that's
yeah,
fine.
but
Say the wild things.
as I say, I look from a European point of view, and you look from a US point of view, and sometimes we disagree, as you said, different topics. But it is interesting to see the reaction from some of the audience.
Right.
Look back on some of the comments here.
Well, sometimes when we're doing collaborative work, I'll pull up whatever I pull up on my screen, and I'll say, well, let's do a little investigation on this topic. And you're like,
yeah.
When I go to the same website, literally same website, I get a completely different feed. It is completely different, and that's algorithm driven and geographically driven. So
yes, which is quite interesting. We really have found that out that the news feed in Europe is way different than your news feed on the US.
Right. For sure.
And even though, as you said, exactly the same website.
Well, no, and it's even here's the other one. When I put on a VPN where I am, I get a completely different feed on places I have been established for years. Yeah. Right? I'm like, that's really interesting. Even the ones that are supposed to be less biased are that way.
Yeah.
So anywho, you got anything for the good of the people, Patrick?
No, as I said, I hope people do enjoy this video. As I say, I know it might come across, I might be anti-US or anti-this or anti-that, but you have to remember, you can't kind of support your leader all the time. You have to call out, to make a leader better, you have to call them out every now and again, as they would say.
For sure. Alrighty, for Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Like the like, ring the bell, subscribe, and help us beat the algorithm. We're the A&P Gents, and we are out.